What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Detroit Lions video. Now, the NFL trade deadline is just a few days away, as it is on November 3rd. So in just a couple of days, the NFL trade deadline will hit, and teams will no longer be allowed to trade away draft picks and assets to acquire incoming players, along with teams will not be allowed to send players to other teams in order to acquire future draft picks and draft capital. Now, a lot of speculation has been around the Detroit Lions, whether they should be buyers this season, whether they should be sellers this season, or whether they should just sit with what they have and see where the players and the coaches on this team can take them in the 2020 season. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about what I think would be best for the Lions as an organization, both now and for their future, and just kind of talk about what the best way to handle this trade deadline situation would be for the Detroit Lions. Now, before we do get into talking about how the Lions should handle the trade deadline, if you are new to the channel and are enjoying this Detroit Lions content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It only takes 2 seconds out of your day to do so, and it helps the channel out more than you could know. It helps me out more than you could know. So if you could do that, just take those 2 seconds out of your day to hit the like button and the subscribe button, along with turning on post notifications. That would be a huge help to me and the channel, and I would be greatly appreciated for it. But with all that being said, let's get into talking about this trade deadline scenario and how the Lions should handle it as the deadline approaches. Now, the first thing that you got to look at is who's on the trade block, right? Because if there's a lot of really good players on the trade block, then maybe you could say, okay, there's some guys we need to go out and get. And if there's not a lot of really good players on the trade block, if there's a lot of backups or role players on the trade block, then that makes the decision pretty easy, and that's a pretty simple no. We don't need those role players. We do not need those guys. But that's not the case this year. There are a lot of very good, very talented players on the trade block that are available for trade. Some of the big names include Myles Jack, the phenomenal linebacker from Jacksonville; Takk McKinley, the phenomenal defensive lineman from Atlanta; Stephon Gilmore, the 2019 Defensive Player of the Year; John Ross, a former first-round pick and a very exciting wide receiver when healthy; Harrison Smith, a former all-pro safety who's still playing at a very high level for the Minnesota Vikings, along with a lot of other really good, really impactful talent is on the trade block and available for trade. However, even with all the talent, even with all the footballing ability and all of the, extra talent the Lions could and potentially, that the Lions could potentially bring in to help bolster this roster, I don't think that would be necessarily a great idea for them to trade for anybody, unless, of course, they get a really good steal, unless they can maybe get like a John Ross for a future 7th because he doesn't want to be there, or whether they can get maybe a Myles Jack for like a next year or something, or maybe a late round pick in a player. Like, unless they get a really good steal in the trade, I don't think they should necessarily be giving away assets and giving away, capital to acquire a couple of extra players that might help us get to the NFL playoffs to save our coach's job. Now, I have a couple of reasons for this. I think that this would maybe not be the best move for the Lions if they want to win right now, but if they want to win in the next couple of years, if they want to truly bolster this roster, especially if a new coaching staff, if a new regime comes in and they want to make the playoffs in a couple of years, maybe next year, maybe the year after even, I think that the best move right now for the Lions is to just sit and wait and see where the 2020 season takes them. See where Matt Patricia and his coaching staff can take them. See where these players and this roster can take you in the 2020 season. And if this roster can take you to the NFL playoffs, then, obviously you didn't need to make the trade. And if your coaching staff can't win with this very talented roster that they have assembled, then they aren't the right coaching staff to be here in Detroit. Now, my first reason as to why I don't think the Lions should do anything, to why I think the Lions should just sit and not, make a huge move, is that, one, they've already traded for Everson Griffen, right? They made that trade the other day, sending a 6th-round pick to the Cowboys to acquire Everson Griffen. A 6th-round pick isn't a lot to give up. A 6th-round pick, obviously doesn't hold a lot of value, and Everson Griffen is a really good former Pro Bowl player that is going to come in and have a huge impact. So, we're getting him. We're getting an extra pass rusher, another really impactful player for this defensive line. So we're already getting help on the defensive line. Help is already on the way. We've already made the trade. He's already on the roster, already a member of the team. And although he won't be playing tomorrow, there is, he will still be playing 9 games of the NFL season and will still have a lot of opportunity to be impactful. So we've already made a trade. We've already pretty much gotten a pretty good steal. A 6th-round pick for Everson Griffen is really good value for the Detroit Lions. And I like that trade. You know, I think that was good, being aggressive, getting a steal in Everson Griffin. I think that, you know, maybe there was a better way to acquire him, sure, like I said the other day, but at the end of the day, a 6th round pick for Everson Griffin is still really good value, and he's still a guy that will come in and be a huge impact player for the Lions. Now, my second reason as to why I don't think the Lions should buy or sell is because the likelihood of the Lions making the playoffs this year is pretty slim. You know, although the Lions are a 3-3 football team and they are 500, I believe they are still the 10th seed in the NFC. You know, all of the NFC West is ahead of them. The Niners, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Rams are all ahead of them still. There are 2 teams in the NFC North that are ahead of them still, along with all of the other divisional winners, the other 2 divisional winners. So with all of those teams in front of the Detroit Lions, the likelihood of them making the playoffs, even at 8-8 this season, is very, very slim. And as we've talked about before, if the Lions don't make the playoffs, if the Lions don't get to the playoffs this season, Matt Patricia is most likely fired, and Bob Quinn is likely going to be going right along with him. So, you know, the Lions, if they don't make the playoffs this season, which it seems more and more likely every week that it's not going to happen, not necessarily because our talent isn't good enough, more so because the NFC is stacked, and they have a lot of really good winning football teams at the moment that are, you know, obviously only one division winner. You can only have one division winner, and then there's only 3 extra spots after that, which is probably going to be taken by one of the North teams, 2 of the West teams. You know, one of the NFC South teams is probably going to be competing for that as well. So, you know, the NFC has a lot of competition when it comes to the playoff race, and even 8-8, 9-7 probably won't be good enough. Even with 7 teams making the playoffs this season, 9-7 likely won't be good enough for the Lions to squeak into the playoffs this year. And if the Lions can't squeak into the playoffs, then they will not have Matt Patricia as their head coach anymore, as it was, you know, as Martha Ford said in her letter after the 2019 season. You know, if you're not going to be here next year, you should not be allowed to make decisions about this team's future. You know, that goes as far as trading. You know, if you're not going to be here next year, there's no reason that you should be, you know, giving away draft assets. There's no reason you should be giving away capital that, you know, the next regime could use to bring in really good talent. You know, there's no reason to be giving that away if you're not going to be here next year. If your future is not secured with the team, you should not be making decisions that could impact their future, especially if you might not be in that long-term plan for the future. So, you know, the fact that, you know, them keeping their jobs is looking increasingly slimmer every single week, I just don't think it would be the right move for Bob Quinn to start giving away draft picks, to start giving away capital. Obviously, you know, if the Lions do that and they win, that he keeps his job and he, you know, can do that. But I feel like giving away more and more draft picks, trading for more players, just puts the Lions in such a tight situation, especially when it comes to the draft and especially when it comes to trading, because at this point, you know, they only have a couple draft picks left. They only have 5 draft picks left in the NFL draft for this 2021 draft. Only having 5 draft picks is not a lot. Obviously, we have our 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round NFL picks. So, you know, we still have a decent amount of value in the draft, but the more picks we trade away, the slimmer and slimmer the margin for error gets in the draft. You know, 5 picks is still pretty slim. You know, 5 picks is not a lot. That's less than 1 pick per round, obviously. You know, that was only 1 pick on the first day, 2 picks on the second day, and like 2 picks on the third day, which just isn't good enough. You know, you have to have more capital. You have to have more value if you're going to make trades. And, you know, yes, 5 picks can be a really, really solid draft class, but if you're going to start trading picks away, 5 picks is not a lot to work with. And, you know, having only 5 NFL draft picks, having only 5 draft picks to give away, and only 5 draft picks to use makes your margin for error very, very slim, especially when it comes to trading, because now you have less assets to trade away. You have to start trading away a little bit higher draft picks than maybe you don't want to. And, you know, just having the limited draft picks that the Lions have at this point makes trading a lot harder and a lot more risky, because you're going to have to start giving up a few more higher picks. You're going to have to start giving out maybe your 4th, maybe your 3rd. And, you know, at that point, that gets really, really risky, because a 3rd round pick is, you know, you can get really good value out of a 3rd round pick, especially in the NFL draft that is stacked, you know, and especially with an NFL draft that has so much talent in it, like this 2021 draft seems to have at the moment. Giving away all these picks and, you know, kind of crippling the next regime, especially if you're not going to be here, just doesn't seem like a smart thing for the Lions to do at this point. And that falls on Sheila Ford Hamp. If Sheila wants this team to be successful in the future, and she wants her next regime to be set up with the best possible situations to win, and she wants to make this job look the most appealing, she should sit down with Bob Quinn and say, okay, you can call some teams, you can ask about some players, but unless you get an absolute steal, unless you get somebody like, you know, unless you can get an absolute steal, and you have to run it by me first, unless you get an absolute steal and I approve this trade, you are not making any more moves. You are not trading for any more players, because I want this coaching staff, if we do get a new regime, if we do get a new head coach, I want this job to look appealing. I want us to have the most capital for the new head coach. I want us to have the most ability to, be enticing to a head coach, and I want to have the most capital and the most resources possible to improve this team come the offseason and the 2021 NFL draft. So I just think that Bob Quinn should not be allowed to trade away more picks unless, obviously, as I said, it's a really good steal or a really good value trade that Sheila Ford Hamp accepts. And, Sheila Ford Hamp says, okay, that is a good value. That is somebody that we should bring in for this value. And this is a guy that can help our team now and for the future. My last reason also kind of falls in this. Like, the Lions have a lot of talent. The Lions have a lot of talent on their roster. They have a really good quarterback, probably a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. They have an elite wide receiver in Kenny Golladay. They have a very good wide receiver, too, in Marvin Jones. They have a very talented running back in DeAndre Swift. And Kerryon Johnson has some talent, even though it's not necessarily being used in the run game. Our offensive line is playing really, really well and has been for a majority of the season. Our defensive line individually is pretty talented and has started to get a little bit more pressure, a little bit more sacks as in recent weeks, as well as they're adding now Everson Griffin to that defensive line to get more rotation and more pressures. The linebackers have probably been the weakest part of the team, but even then, Jared Davis has been pretty impactful. Jamie Collins has been pretty impactful. Jelani Devay has started to get some pressures and started to look okay. Our secondary looks good. Amani looks like a true lockdown cornerback. Duron Harmon, at times looks really, really good and looks like a pretty good deep middle fielding safety. Tracy Walker, we know, is a beast. We know he's really, really good as a safety. We know that, Jeff Okudah is starting to come along and starting to play much better in the, in recent weeks. He started to play much, much better and started to look like, maybe he can live up to that third overall pick. So, I mean, this team has a lot of talent. This team has all the talent they need to go make a playoff run. This team has all the talent in the world to go out and make some noise in the NFC. And at this point, it comes down to the coaching and the play calling. At this point in the NFL season, we have all the talent on the team that we need to make the playoffs. We have all the ability. We have all the talent. What it comes down to now is how good can Matt Patricia coach up this team? How good can the play callers call a game to help this talent put this talent in the best position to win football games? At this point in the NFL season, how good can your coaches be? How good can your play calling be? That is the big question, because we have all the talent that we need, and the only thing holding this team back right now is a coaching staff. The only thing holding this team back right now is good play callers and a good head coach. And if the Lions play callers can do really good, if they can call really good football games, if they can go out and win a lot of football games because of their play calling, because of the way they coached up this team, then they can stay here. Then, if they make the playoffs because they coached a really good, end second half of the season, then I have no problem with them staying here. But if this coaching staff can't win with the team they've built over the past 3 years, if they can't win with this roster that has so much individual talent, then they should not be the coaching staff here anyways. If you feel as though your team isn't good enough to make the playoffs right now, then that eventually does fall on Matt Patricia. That eventually does fall on Matt Patricia because he's had 3 years to build this team. And if the Lions, need more time, if they need more players on this team, if they need to, trade more guys to even have a chance to make the playoffs, at that point, that's a bad situation to be in. So, I think the Lions need to sit. I think they need to wait. They need to see what this team and what this coaching staff can do, especially with the addition of Everson Griffin coming in a couple of days. Obviously he can't play this weekend, but he will be able to play next weekend versus the Vikings. So I think the Lions just need to sit. I think that would be the best decision for the future. I think that would be the best decision for right now. That gives you a great chance to see what your coach can do with the roster he's built. That gives you, 5 picks in the NFL draft, which is a little less than I would like, but it's still a decent amount of picks, and you could still do a decent amount of damage in the draft with those picks. Obviously, as I said, the biggest thing that lets you know whether your coach is the real deal or not. Because the Lions have won 2 in a row, and Matt Patricia's seat is getting a little cooler every single time he wins a game. So, don't trade for anybody. See if Matt Patricia can do what you asked him to do. See if Matt Patricia can go out with the roster he's built and see if he can go win a couple of football games and go out and make the playoffs. See if he can go make some noise in the NFC. And if he can, then that's great. And if he can't, then he's not the right head coach. I think trading right now would be a bad idea for the Lions. I think it's just giving up too much capital. It's giving Matt Patricia extra guys to save his job. And while I don't you know, I say that and that might sound bad. I don't want Matt Patricia to get fired necessarily just because he's Matt Patricia. I want to see him improve. I want to see him start winning games. I want to see him become a great NFL head coach with the Detroit Lions. But if he can't win with the roster that he's built over the past 3 years, then he isn't the right guy. And trading for more players, trading for more talent, giving away more draft picks and more capital is only going to hinder this team in the long term. It's only going to hurt this team in the future. And this team has a lot of talent, and I think that, you know, they only need a couple more pieces to succeed, but I don't know if trading away the picks right now is the right move to help this team succeed. You know, I think that they need a little bit more young talent. They need a little bit more, they need a few more players from drafts and from free agencies, but trading right now is not the right decision for the Lions. Sitting and waiting and seeing what your team can accomplish in the 2020 season is the right move for the Detroit Lions, both now and for the long-term success of this team. Now, with all that being said, that is all I got for you guys right now. What do you guys think? How do you guys think that we should handle this trade deadline situation? Do you think the Lions should sit, or do you think they should, you know, be aggressive? Do you think they should go out and buy players? Do you think they should go out and trade for the Myles Jacks, the Ryan Kerrigans, the Takk McKinleys of the world? Do you think they should go out and be aggressive and maybe give away some draft assets and some players to help them succeed this season? Or do you think they should sit and kind of wait and see what Matt Patricia can do and give this next coaching regime a lot of draft capital, a lot of, you know, space to work with, and a lot of room to work with when it comes to the NFL draft when they do get here? Let me know that down in the, let me know your opinions on this down in the comments below. With all that being said, that is all I got for you guys right now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. If there is no Lions news before tomorrow, then, you know, if there's Lions news before tomorrow, then I will obviously make a video on it. But if there's no Lions news, then that is all I got for you guys right now. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you all tomorrow with more Lions content. Bye, guys.